Okay. Hi, this is Laura from Healing with Spirit. Welcome to the next episode of Triggers and Spiritual Medicine, where we address the elephant in the room to the growing sickness in our society, address root issues, and provide sustainable solutions. We hope by addressing the intersectionality and connect the dots like the web of many of society's challenges, we can help others understand the trauma, infection, that impacts all areas of our life, whether it's addiction, domestic violence, systemic racism, homelessness, sexual abuse, chronic health issues, cancer, the environmental issues, climate change, and more. This is a collaboration program, and we hope to share a new perspective of solutions, healing, and resolutions. Each episode addresses a certain trigger while offering the spiritual medicine with at least 3 tips or actionable steps our listeners, you, that means you at home, can take and implement. Please consider becoming a Patreon supporter to support our social justice initiatives, and the links are in the comments below in the descriptions. And today I am so excited because, and Meltem, is that how I say your name, by the way? Is
That's
Meltem?
right.
Well, I should ask beforehand, but anyway, so she is amazing. We've been in our circles in the Jikun and Reiki community for a few years, and watching her grow and flourish from chronic disease is absolutely inspiring. And it's exactly what we need to talk about, because she does address the root issues on how she addressed and healed and recovered from rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. Welcome, Meltem.
Hi, so excited to be here.
Please tell our community, just to start, like your background, who you are, and
Absolutely. So I've been in the healing arts for about 20 years now. I studied, I have an MBA in international business. And when I was doing my master degree, that's when my health issues started affecting me. I was doing my master degree in the Bay Area. In international business, and one day I woke up and I couldn't, my whole body was stiff and I was in excruciating pain and I had no idea what was going on. I had to literally crawl to the phone, and we had landlines back then. There were no cell phones back then, believe it or not. We're talking about 95, 97 here. So I had to crawl to the landline to call my roommate, who was with her boyfriend at the time in his house, to have her come and help me out because I didn't know what was going on. Anyways, later that year, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and I was about 21, 22. Anyhow, they said there's no cure for it, the allopathic medicine, the specialist, and that I would have to take these big anti-inflammatories and some heavy painkillers to help me go through life, basically. I was like, okay, well, thanks. I was like, I'll see you later. And I started looking for something else. Luckily in Austria, that's where, after I finished my studies, I went back to Austria. That's where I was living back then. That's where I grew up. I stumbled upon someone who had similar issues, and she had found a homeopath. At the time, I didn't know what kind of homeopath, but she was a classical homeopath, and I'll talk about what the difference is later on when I start talking about what I do, Heilkunst homeopathy. And however, she put me on a diet. She told me that my issues, that rheumatoid arthritis is just a symptom. It's not a real disease of something deeper. And so she put me on a certain diet, and she gave me some homeopathic remedies. And throughout the whole year that I was with her in her treatments, I had no symptoms. I was completely fine. So I knew that there was something else out there for me at the time. I understood it. And that, the fact that there's no cure was not true. Then after the treatment, I did pay attention to the diet she recommended and what she asked me to avoid, which was basically sugar and anything that's inflammatory. So throughout life, after those years that came, I did pay attention to my diet, which kind of kept me afloat. Whenever I would eat something that I'm not supposed to eat, my issues would flare up. I would have joint issues. So it was not a true cure, but she just helped me understand what I can and cannot do and how I would feel better. And then at some point I moved to New York. That's years later. And I was sitting in an office in corporate America, and I started getting this intuitive message that I need to do something for others. I was like, okay. And it started getting louder and louder to the point where I couldn't ignore it. And so I started searching. It's like, what else can I do for others? And up to that point, I was not into spiritual studies or anything like that. But New York had started opening me up when I moved there. So anyways, the first thing that came to my plate was Reiki. So I took Reiki 1 and 2, Western Reiki. And although I was like, oh, this is nice, I still felt like it was not what I had expected. Like something was missing, and that was not as potent as
that was
it
the
should
thing for
be.
me too. It
Right?
was
So
like
strange. Yeah.
I just felt like I'm like, if Reiki historically cured every
Cured.
known
I don't
illness
think
and
this is it. That's
disease,
kind of what I
then
was.
what am I missing? I just kept
Yeah,
saying, what am I
exactly.
missing?
Exactly. That's how I felt. So I was like, okay, this is strange. So anyways, I started exploring more. I got into some other healing modalities, which I taught. Actually, I learned and I started teaching. And then I got into yoga, which really helped me. I still to this day teach yoga, love yoga. It's one of my spiritual medicines, and I don't think I'll ever stop. Hopefully, I never have to. So yeah, and then I started delving deeper into the spiritual studies and spiritual work to the point where I stopped, everything else I was doing, and I delved deeper into teaching yoga and teaching other healing modalities, which also helped me in my own journey in my health. Then I came to Vancouver. At that point, I had already started feeling worse. Although spiritually and emotionally I was feeling better. I had not found true cure for rheumatoid arthritis, and at some point it actually turned into fibromyalgia. So when I moved to Vancouver, I was already suffering from fibromyalgia, and it was just getting worse and worse, the pain. And I suffered with it for about 8 years. Through those 8 years, I was desperately looking for a cure. I also became a Jiken Reiki practitioner at that time. During those 8 years, started teaching Jiken Reiki, fell in love with it at a spiritual level, at an energetic, as an energetic level, spiritual level, as going deeper into my meditation. That's what I was looking for. I just wanted to connect deeper into my higher self, go deeper into my meditations. I was kind of feeling stuck. And that just kind of blew the roof off. And I was like, whoa, what is this? I need to go deeper into this, and I need to explore this more. So I became a teacher, and I still teach to this day. Love it.
I remember when I first learned Jiken and Reiki, I tell people like, Jiken and Reiki to me was like, I just heard the word Jiken and it was something that says, you need to do this. I didn't even know. And I remember when Ajava said what Jiken meant, and I was like, oh, now that makes sense, right? But I had just taught Western Reiki at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went to my first Jiken and Reiki class, I was like, oh shit, what the hell have I been teaching people?
Yeah, exactly. Right?
I was like, holy shit. And I had a big hematoma on my thigh because when I had just taught Western Reiki, I was trying to take, because I was teaching it in a medical office, I was taking the sheets off the exam table, and it kind of ricocheted and gave me a huge hematoma on my thigh. And I was like, oh shit. And then when I learned that you can use this for like bruises and stuff, and I remember I go, okay, I'll do that. I go, I'll see if this works. I don't know.
And it works, right? So
and I was driving home, and I'm like, oh my God, literally after suffering with it, like darker than this book here, this purple, darker than this. And like, by the time I got home, I had fingerprints where it was completely gone.
That's awesome.
But it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, yes, you learn all these things, right?
First aid techniques. I tried it on my finger. I cut my finger, and I have to teach hot yoga. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? So I started the first aid technique, and bleeding stopped as we are taught, and the pain would disappear. And I was able to teach 2 yoga classes. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I can't tell you, like, I was like, where the heck is this been? I mean, there's a lot of things like, you know, and that's probably why, like, I wrote a whole book on
Yeah,
not so much Chicken and Reiki, but the things that we're missing, I think, in Western culture. There's
yeah.
like, we don't know what we don't know until we come
Yeah.
across what we don't
Oh
know.
God,
And
yeah, yeah.
either you're open to receive it,
Yeah.
or you're going to let the ego get in the way and act like, you know it all. And as Asui said,
And some people
Asui
do,
himself
unfortunately.
created, right. But Asui, I was, one of my students said to me once, Laura, the one thing I remember, if nothing else, she says, you taught me was to always maintain the mindset of a student, because that's what Asui did himself. That he
Absolutely.
created a level he himself did not obtain, because
Yeah.
when you think you did, you are
You fail.
mistaken,
You fall from grace. You're like, bye.
right?
Totally. Yeah.
So I had to like just say that, because I was like, I remember going through that and I was like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I had, when I first stumbled upon it, it was Sharon Richler. I'm sure you know her, or you heard about her, at least she's from our Chicken and Reiki community. She's also a homeopath, which she also inspired me to delve into homeopathy and learn it. And she's my homeopath as well. But she was the one who got me into Chicken and Reiki, because I was already teaching, and even here when I came here, I was teaching other healing modalities. And I had Western Reiki, other healing modalities. I was not looking for another Reiki for sure. But I asked her, I was like, I want to learn channeling. I want to connect deeper to my higher self, and just know the answers myself, and rather than looking outside of myself. And she's like, learn Chicken and Reiki. I'm like, I already know Reiki, other healing. How would that help me,
It's
channeling?
amazing. It's amazing
Right.
the
It's incredible.
perception of what we like. I don't know. I've always looked at, like, why do we have this negative connotation around it? Why do we, yeah, I mean, I just think about that. Like,
Yeah.
and what I've said and unfortunately in the Boston area is I don't even say Chicken and Ricky anymore, because there's such a disconnect. And I just say I do Japanese therapies.
Oh, really? There's something against Chicken and Reiki?
Well, because if I say Chicken and Reiki in this community, they
Right.
automatically assume it is exactly like everything else out there.
Oh, I see what you mean. Got it. Got it.
So I just say I acquired a client once by accident, because we were talking about dogs.
Yeah.
And I think I had just met them when I had just gotten her and I was trying to train them.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's like, they go, oh, well, you're doing amazing work with, what are you doing? Like, I said, well, I do holistic therapies,
Yeah.
diet, training. I said,
Yeah.
but I also do Japanese therapies. And they go, oh, like Reiki? And I'm like, well, not what you probably, I said, what do you consider Reiki? Because that's where I sometimes go. I was like, what do you consider Reiki?
Yeah.
And then they're like, they go into, and when I explain to them the style of Reiki that I do, and they
Yeah.
go, because they had a
Oh,
very negative thing about it.
yeah.
And so I was like, it's a Western bias thing because of where Western Reiki has gone. So I was like, okay, so how do I just say Japanese therapies.
I do.
I
Yeah. I
explained
say
to them,
Jikin and Reiki, and I say it's traditional Japanese healing art, so that they can distinguish and know that it's something different. And I always add, if I need to explain, that it's pure and nothing has been added to it, nothing has been taken out. So it's different than Western Reiki, which is true. I mean, the difference is like day and night, literally. So anyhow,
same thing. Like, I ended up going and helping their mother transition from brain cancer
yeah,
using
amazing,
Chicken and Reiki, because
right?
I was like,
Incredible. I mean,
when
I
they
have
when they
examples
finally go,
on
they go, oh,
myself
that's
all the
different.
time. Throat ache, oh, and I mean, it's so easy, right? It's just I have my hands and they can heal. It's incredible. There's nothing
So
better.
yeah, go ahead. So sorry.
No, it's great. I love the chat. Anything about Reiki and spirituality and holistic healing. Anyhow, so yeah, so then I got into Jikin Reiki. It blew my mind. I gave in to, she can't say no to Sharon Richler. When she wants you to do something, you just do it. She's very convincing. Anyhow, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I was like, this is incredible. I was literally like, first of all, the second day of the training, I was like, we were giving Reiki to the last person when we were practicing. And then all of a sudden I started crying. I started feeling some pain in my back, and I was like uncomfortable right at the back of my heart. And then crying for like 2 minutes straight up. And then it was gone. I was fine. So and the next day when I set into my meditation, I was like, wow, what just happened? It was incredible. I was at a completely different level, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And the way I showed up to the world was also so different. I love Reijus, the attunements that we do, which is not an attunement, but clearing the blockages. Yeah, it was amazing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to become a teacher and go all the way, and I'll do everything I need to do. I need to teach this. Anyhow, so
how grateful I am to the Yamaguchi family that they decided to teach the West,
I know
because
we're
the
so
medicine,
lucky,
they didn't have to. I mean, they were practicing
I know
Reiki in Japan for
they didn't
65
have to.
years. And we didn't
Yeah.
even know. And I go, like, every time I see like our Java Tadao, I part of me just wants to break down and cry out of
Yeah.
gratitude, because I
Yeah.
just say, Reiki saved, like saved me from like committing suicide type of thing, you know,
Yeah.
not like I was suicidal, but it stopped that initial
The
thing.
thoughts, yeah.
But chicken and Reiki, like, I was like, you have no idea how it changed my life.
Oh yeah, that's incredible, honestly. Yeah, and how it continues to change people's lives as we teach, right? I mean, every
Right?
time I see people come in with heavy loads, they're like, oh my God, they have this dark cloud around them into my Reiki classes. And already after the first day, it's just a different person. They come the next day, they're just shining bright, completely different person, laughing. They put some makeup on, did their hair, and I'm just like, this is incredible. Or, you know, put a nice shirt if it's a gentleman. So I mean, I can just see it from one day of Jikin and Reiki, Reiju attunements, how it shifts the person. So it's just, yeah, there's no doubt. It's incredible.
So
Anyhow, so I started teaching. Huh?
No, go ahead. I was going to
Oh,
say,
sorry, yeah.
so how did
Yeah, so I started Jikin and Reiki. Anyhow, as I said, I met my before that, before all of the Jikin and Reiki happened, I was at a place where it was around October year. Oh my God, I think it's been 6 years. 6 years, yeah, it's been 6 years. And I was at a point where I knew if I didn't find my practitioner, if I didn't find the cure, that I was going to have cancer. That was just a big, this download. I knew it. And I had to like search and find that person that was going to get me out of this. And sure enough, I started searching more, blah, blah, blah. And I put, I guess, just intention out there too. One of my students, yoga students, I saw her and she looked so different and so much healthier and happier. And I was like, what happened to you? And she's like, oh, I started seeing this person, homeopath, and, you know, I'm taking these things and I feel so much better. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Let me have her information. And it turned out to be Sharon Richlark. So I call her and I'm like, tell her, it's our first conversation goes like this. I'm like, so this and this and this happened to me. I tell her my whole story, just like I'm doing right now, from the rheumatoid arthritis to this present moment with fibromyalgia, and my story with candida infection, which is what it started everything, and years of using antibiotics, which is the reason why I had candida. Anyways, and she goes like, oh, you know, the next step is cancer, right? I'm like, oh, I'm in the right place. I know the right person. She's talking my language. I'm like, exactly. That's why I'm desperately seeking for the person who's gonna, you know, get me out of this and not make me have cancer. So she's like, okay, you're in the right place. Anyways, we started. She does biotherapeutic drainage. She's a biotherapeutic drainage homeopath. And so I started doing detoxification with her homeopathically, which is a part of what we do in Heilkunst, but just a part. And it already helped me quite a bit. I did that for about 2 years with her. And then I decided, since I started feeling a little bit better, I was not cured yet, but I was feeling better. I decided to take up on homeopathy. And I asked her which school I should go to and whether her school is still around or if I can go to the school that she went to. She said it is not taught in Canada anymore, the school or the type that of homeopathy that she does, but that she had heard great things about this other school in Ontario, and that I could do it, online. I was like, oh, amazing! It was called Hanuman's Center for Heilkunst and Homeopathy. So, anyways, I started the college. It's a 3.5-year college, and as you do the college, you also have to go through a treatment. It's a part of the protocol. So, as a student, you also go through treatment so that you are at all levels, spiritually, physically, emotionally, cured before you can start treating other patients. Because if you have emotional issues yourself, blah, 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 first of all, you cannot fully, we call that intuitively know or feel the issues of the person. And also hold space to be able to guide them through their healing. You would have your own triggers.
By the way. That's such a different schooling, because I actually just commented the other day on somebody who was asking about trauma-informed training, and how to get.
Yeah.
And I said the problem I have is there is no degree, in my opinion, from academia, because it's all, first of all, patriarchal, colonizer, money driven, and it's not about actually helping people. So it's
totally.
It's challenging. So to hear that they're saying that part of the protocol to get certified or to have 100%. This degree is that you actually have to walk this talk. You can't just talk.
100%. And
that's a huge
also
deal.
Know exactly, you experience everything that you have to go through as you're healing. So you know what you're talking about, just like you said. So it was a huge part of, it was huge.
I just wanted to highlight that and how big that was.
It's incredible. Exactly. Yeah. It's they know what they're doing, these people. Anyhow, so as I was going through my treatment and learning, and going to the college and learning Heilkunst homeopathy, on the second year of my Heilkunst treatment, I was free. No pain. I mean, slowly, of course, I started feeling a little bit better, just like I did with Sharon with the detoxification. But after removing the layers of trauma, which is a huge part of what we do in Heilkunst homeopathy, one layer at a time, from the most recent trauma to pre-birth, and then going deeper into inherited traumas and diseases and clearing those, then at some point that trigger, whatever triggered either a chronic miasm to become active, or whatever triggered that point of no return, as a lot of people might come to you when you're in the healing world. Oh, since this day, I have never felt better, right? There's always that turning point where the last drop goes into the glass and it starts overflowing. So once you get to that point, you start to fully free yourself. And so that was for me 2 years of Heilkunst treatments, and then I was completely free. Along that time, of course, I started slowly feeling better. Usually you start feeling better at the emotional level first. And so the underlying feeling of the disease started elevating. But then, it took me about 2 years of treatment and removing trauma after trauma and trauma to be completely free. But I was free. And today, and it's funny, right now, I'm in my chronic miasms, meaning inherited diseases, the second round of it, which is what we do treatment. So I've done all my trauma line. And every month a trauma is removed, I feel a little bit more elevated, even up to this point. Because it's not physical anymore, right? But the fibromyalgia, all that is gone. But we still have a lot of things that we need to work on, right? We still have some certain fears. We still have certain addictions, this and that. All of these begin to elevate. These were taught to us, right? A huge part of what we do is removing traumas, and anything can be a trauma. Trauma from abuse, trauma from just a fall, trauma from tumbling downstairs. All of these impinge our life force, and when they're layered on top of each other, at some point the life force is too much to handle, and then you start either a new disease appears or an inherited disease becomes active that was lying dormant in your body for all those years. So that's when the point of no return happens and you start feeling sick. And if these are not addressed, you just start getting worse and worse and worse, just like it happened with me. Started with rheumatoid arthritis, and then it turned into fibromyalgia, which are, by the way, just names put onto symptoms through allopathic medicine. They have no cure for it. They don't know where it comes from because they don't understand that the deeper issues lie in the traumas. So that they put a bunch of symptoms and call it a disease, but it's just symptoms of a deeper issue that is within us, which is what we treat in Heilkunst homeopathy. So
thing in psychotherapy too, it's like I had mentioned to you before, we talked earlier before, and there's a colleague of ours that is addressing that in psychotherapy of how, you know, because psychotherapy was created by old white men initially to kind of disempower slaves from becoming freed, right? And then it was, okay, well, she's rebelling against her husband because she wants to be free. Well, she's got to be hysterical, so let's lock her up in an insane asylum, you know? And so her one of the books that she wrote was Sexy but Psycho, and how the patriarchy uses women's trauma against them. And it's like, wait a minute, if you just fix the situations, the trauma goes away. Like if people wasn't afraid of, how am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to keep a roof over my head? How am I going to pay my bills? Those are all stresses that can actually lead to trauma, because if it becomes chronic, then it becomes traumatized, right? It's a trauma. So it's,
I mean, even a simple, well, it's not simple, but a car accident can really affect you deeply. For example, I had a car accident. I opened my door and a huge truck, and I opened my door and I was like, oh, I forgot my bag. I reached for my bag. And within that moment, I turned, this huge truck was coming and it just took my door. And it just made a huge sound and it really shook my being. And it really impinged my life force because it was quite traumatic and very loud and this and that. So after that, I was really, and I had a small accident after that as well. Somebody bumped into me. I was really shook and I did not feel comfortable driving. I was literally, every time I heard a sound, I was like this, and, you know, I was tense. I was scared of driving. So after I treated that trauma through the trauma treatment, which is a part of it, like, you know, anything can be a trauma, a car accident. These are all need to be treated so that you can release that shrapnel that really impinges on your life force to set yourself free.
It's the root issues. It's the root issues, right?
Totally. And
I mean, my father was not
treatment. I was free. Now I can drive. I don't have that. But if I had not addressed that, I would have been stuck with that most probably until I somehow found a solution to it. So we get stuck with these things literally that traumatize us, and they really affect us. And at some point, it would turn into a physical issue, right? It would not just stay emotional and physical. At an emotional level, like a trauma, but it would also start to go deeper and affect my physical health as well. So everything is connected.
I always say it's unpacking, right? And sometimes the unpacking is also just even, you know, at least in the States, you know, for those that are born here, especially, it's the unpacking of cultural conditioning. You know, like one of the things we're going to be doing, going on the pilgrimage to Ireland, is unpacking patriarchal conditioning, unpacking inner misogyny, unpacking church indoctrination. And because that's all the things that happened to our ancestors, that's the reclamation. You know?
Yeah, totally. Or any other religion for that matter. You have to reverse and rewire.
Yeah, you know, but there's such a freeing. I always say when you have a full closet, right? And you open it up and you go, oh, and you can feel it's like overwhelming because there's just so much stuff in your closet, right? And then I go, yeah, but you go through the thing of like taking everything out and you go, oh my God, this is so exhausting. There's so much shit in here. There's so much of this crap in here. And then when you go and you finally realize I only want to put this much stuff in the closet, and then you go, now it's nice and tight. Now it's nice and clean and it feels light. It feels great. And then you
Oh,
go, oh shit, now
so
what do I
right.
do with this
I
stuff?
love clearing.
Like, what do you do with this
Yes,
stuff?
true.
It's like, what do we do with this stuff now, right? Do we give it away? Do we let it go? Do we burn it? Do we
Yeah.
throw it away? Like, it's the same thing. It's cleaning out our own inner closets, right? But I
Totally,
love your
totally.
pathway. I love your pathway. What do you feel is the what do you feel was the aha moment for you in this whole journey?
Oh, knowing well, I mean, I think it started a long time ago, and just knowing that there's something else out there that could help me, and that allopathic is not the only route, but there is cure out there, even if I'm told there isn't. So for me, the aha moment was that first homeopath that told me that there's a cure for the condition that I have, and it's not really a simple rheumatoid arthritis, that there's actually like a condition underneath it, which was in my case a candida infection that started local, and then that just started spreading and overgrowing to all parts of my body. So that my body fighting constantly this candida, trying to remove it, became an autoimmune issue. So that it was attacking my joints and stuff like that. Anyways, so that was my aha moment, that there's something else out there, and that continued throughout my whole life, where I tapped into different modalities, like Reiki.
And each time when
Reiki.
we do this, we're
Oh,
deepening the
100%. So
layers. We keep
it's
going
like
deeper and
literally
deeper.
a little light bulb went on. I was like, oh, that's there. So there is help out there. So that was my kind of my awakening moment, I
I
think.
think I want to just emphasize for people that may not look at alternative therapies, any kind of complementary alternative therapies,
Yeah.
that you just said it like it was a light bulb moment, that it doesn't, especially if for those who are stuck in the spiral of not getting better, or
Yeah,
you're getting worse in
exactly.
traditional healthcare. And this is
Yeah.
not a stop your treatments. This is a
Absolutely
just
not.
say
100% not.
this is
We
just,
do not absolutely recommend that.
yeah,
Allopathic
it's
medicine
just
can be
it,
life-saving. If you fall, if you have any car accidents, they put you back together. They're incredible that way. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. And absolutely do not stop what you're doing. But do also know and understand that there are other ways and alternative ways that you can help yourself. You don't always have to stuff yourself with medication that has side effects, that you can choose alternative methods to help yourself. And even if you're told that there's no cure for it, I can tell you for sure 100% that there is cure for everything. That's in my world, at least. I don't know how you stand there, Laura, but for me, there's a cure for everything.
I can give you a testament where I had a client once that was told she was 30 years old, diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer,
Yeah.
and told that she would never have kids. She'd be lucky if she'd survive it, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah.
She did a multi-prong approach,
Yeah.
and I was part of her team.
Yeah.
But I was probably more instrumental in helping her find that other team to bring in,
Yeah.
including like changing diet, changing from a toxic job,
Yeah.
getting rid of like addressing the EMS and radiations from cell phones, which she actually
Exactly.
realized that the EMS from the cell phone was probably what caused her cancer.
Yeah.
And 4 years later, went into remission. And then we worked on, okay, given the green light to let's try to get pregnant. Well, she was trying to do insemination because that was the easiest, fastest way.
Yeah.
And she was getting frustrated after a few months. And I said, yeah, but I'm not seeing it until September. And I go, why do I keep seeing multiples? Right. I go, I keep seeing multiples with you. September comes along. She goes, oh my God, Laura, I'm pregnant and I'm carrying
Yeah.
triplets.
I had
So it's like
two patients who came to me, couldn't conceive, and they were able to conceive afterwards.
yeah, I mean,
They were like trying forever and ever and ever, and
in this case, a lot of times it was unpacking. Like, I think what you're addressing is she was healing the root issues. There was a past life
100%.
issue connected to where she was traumatized.
Yeah.
There was also a sexual trauma that she had to heal, which was
Exactly.
affecting her womb and her ability, as well as it was linked to the cancer. Not that it caused the cancer, but again, it's all these tentacles, right?
It's all connected, yes.
It's all the tentacles.
Also, predispositions, right? So we come into this world with a package from our grandparents, parents, And and cancer is a chronic miasm now in the Heilkunst world, homeopathy. So it's actually inherited, in my world at least, in the treatment Heilkunst homeopathy that we do. And
typically see cancer as, because like I know with breast cancer, 100% of the women I've worked with breast cancer have a history of domestic violence or sexual assault.
There you go. Yeah. And
so I always see this as like any kind of reproductive cancer, including fibroids, as an unresolved trauma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a huge part of what we do, let me talk a little bit more about Heilkunst homeopathy, so the listeners are a little bit more clear about what the hell it is.
Yes.
So different from classical homeopathy. Classical homeopathy, unfortunately, like allopathic medicine, and again, nothing against anything. They do what they need to do. But however, in my world, they use what we call the law of opposites, meaning they generally just palliate or suppress symptoms, but they do not cure. Same thing with classical homeopathy. The difference in Heilkunst homeopathy is we treat the root cause of disease so that the person is elevated forever, that the actual root cause is cured and destroyed through what we call trauma line treatment, which I touched upon earlier. However, that's just, again, a huge part of what we do, but we see a person holistically. So we have to address all parts of that person's life. This includes diet, exercise, hydration, and sleep. So when before we see a patient, we give out intake forms. One of them is about their regimen, we call, what they do, how they drink, how much they drink, what they eat, what they don't eat, what their blood type is. We truly believe in blood type diet, which is what I'm going to recommend everyone here who's listening as a takeaway, to get your blood type tested, know what your blood type is, and try to adhere to a blood type diet. You can just Google blood type dieting. Dr. Diadamo, he wrote books about it. It's an incredible study. It changed my life. What happens is, just to touch a little bit upon blood type dieting, is if you eat things against your blood type, each blood type has neutral, healing, and things that are bad for that blood type. If you eat things that are bad for your blood type, it thickens your blood, agglutinates it, we call it, and it slows your metabolism. It can even cause strokes. It can even cause diseases in the long term. And it begins to, in itself, cause disease if you eat against your blood type, or if you eat too much of what's against your blood type. So once you start to adhere to a blood type diet, of course, this is apart from the general consensus of how you should eat healthy, meaning don't drink too much, obviously. Try to eat as organic as possible. This is what we recommend as a general regimen. And then we ask the patients to also, as best as they can, adhere to a blood type diet. And then the foods that are good for that blood type, they actually help with the healing of that person. So they actually are healing for them. For example, an O blood type is an ancient blood type. They actually, sorry, vegans, I was vegan for 12 years. I love animals. But I was really sick and I had to change my diet. And so when I understood that my blood type actually needs animal protein, I had to shift to a normal diet, and it also was quite life-changing. So a lot of the times,
my blood type done, because I'll tell you, I probably should get my blood type done, only because I do everything intuitively,
Yes,
and
yes.
I even tried to go vegan for a while. And what I found was a lot of the protein sources that you need as a vegan I actually got sick from.
Me too.
I
I
got sick.
was sick. I became allergic to soy. I couldn't eat soy anymore. I still can't to this day. I was allergic to dairy, and I was just like, well,
Yeah. I mean, I can't dare do dairy anyway, but I mean,
yeah.
like, I think I needed and I go, okay, well, then if I even see, I did it from my ancestral, knowing where my ancestors came from. And
Well,
my
here's what
ancestors were
it is.
Irish, German, Russian. So you're talking northern.
Exactly.
And what did they survive on? They
Exactly.
survived on rooted vegetables
Exactly.
and meat,
Yeah.
you know?
So when we look at the actual, the do's and don'ts that most people should know by now, or educate yourself on it, please. All these canola oil, and stay away from them. Try to eat as fresh and as whole foods as possible. And then apart from that package, and trying to eat as much organic as possible and grass fed, you do really, it would be so helpful. Again, this is my huge take for you to take away today, hopefully, to get your blood checked, know what your blood type is, and try to adhere to it as best as possible. That alone will make a huge change in your life. Apart from that, we also look at the person's sleep patterns. When we start, sometimes the actual issue of the person lies in this regimen, for example, and they already, after changing their regimen, start feeling better, right? So we always look at the regimen and fix that first and give recommendations, whether they adhere to it or not. It's their problem. We say, it's for your best to adhere to it as best as you can, but it's the hardest one to change as well, because people have habits, right, that they stick to. At some point, which is what I want to touch upon, you said you do everything intuitively. That's because you came to a point in your life where you probably are not attracted to food, but you resonate with food. This is what we call in Heilkunst homeopathy, meaning, for example, if things that we are attracted to usually, they come more from a disease state of mind. However, when we start to heal, when we start to become more intuitive, when we start to truly become who we are and who we are meant to be, we start to resonate with food. So we start to eat foods that are healthier for us automatically. We don't have to put any effort in it. At the beginning, you put effort to eat healthy, right? Afterwards, it becomes just a part of your being, part of your state of being. You actually automatically want good things for yourself. This is where, thankfully, I am at right now in my life, because I struggled with food all my life. And
it was so I came from a very intuitive family, so medical intuitiveness. My father was a medical intuitive, as a physician, so he used medical intuition as a diagnostic tool,
amazing.
as a physician,
Yeah.
but also plants. I mean, it runs all the way in my grandmother's on his side of the family, where we used to just talk to plants. So it was
Right.
always tied to that, talk to animals, I mean, it was kind of, it's what I say, I'm like a multi-generational in this, so
Beautiful.
it was, now that they've crossed, the voice is louder, so it's easier to hear
Yeah.
than it was
Nice.
before,
Beautiful.
but yeah, it's fascinating, like when but I also say sometimes the trauma brain, if you haven't dealt with that piece, sometimes lead you down the wrong road, and then you call it intuition. So it's knowing
Exactly. And
what
all
is
those
intuition.
abilities that you have also begin to come from a more healthier place.
Yeah.
So you can intuitively guide people better, not from a place of ego or a place of a diseased state of mind. So in Heilkunst homeopathy, we take care of the regimen and we try to fix that. And sometimes a lot of the issues are taken care of during that time. The people come with us with a lot of a list of issues that they have. So some of those things are taken care of in that. We then look at a person's homeopathic constitution, which was mind-blowing for me, and which is another thing I would love to recommend the listeners here today. Find a Heilkunst homeopath. I'm happy to help. I treat patients in the States and also in Canada. And find what your Heilkunst homeopathic constitution is. It was for me eye-opening, life-changing to understand more about myself, basically, and why I am a certain way. I didn't understand why I was It's the two. Now I don't, because I'm actually healed. And as we heal, these predispositions, things that we come to this world with, they also begin to heal and cure things like any fears, deep fears, delusions and illusions. So I was afraid of the dark, and I was like, why? You know, even at this age, like, well, how ridiculous is that? And I never understood it. And apparently my constitution, which is phosphorus, and they are afraid of dark. I was like, oh my God. Then I didn't feel like a silly idiot at, you know, certain age. Now I don't have that issue anymore, because like I said, every time we cure and heal, all these underlying, even if it's a part of your constitution, even those are stabilized and cured, so that you come to a state of just being and a balanced human being. So that we have, so in homeopathic, in Heilkunst homeopathy, we have 6 main constitutions, and a person who is cured is meant to have a little bit of each 6 of them, so they're completely balanced. And whenever you need, you, for example, take the good traits, you can pick and choose the good traits of these different constitutions and use them when you need to. For example, a phosphorus or a sulfur, they can talk a lot, or like a podium, for example. They're good at public speaking. So you pick and choose these things. So if you are, for example, a silica, who is a little bit more on the shy side, but if you're cured and healed and everything is balanced, all these different constitutions, you're able to pick and choose and tap into these at will. So that, for example, if you're going to have a podcast, you can tap into, for example, your, let's say, sulfur constitution is very chatty, or like a podium, and stuff like that. So at some point, everything becomes more balanced, even the constitution that we came into this world with. However, it is really important to know, so that you understand more about yourself, so you don't feel like, oh, why am I this way and why am I that way? You also understand what's good for you and what's not good for you. Each constitution also has certain things that are good for them and certain things that are not great for them, food-wise, exercise-wise, etc., etc. So that's another thing that I would definitely recommend, and it's part of what we do. Another intake that we send to our patients is constitutional intake, so that we figure out what their constitution is, and we give them a constitutional remedy along with a mix of emotional remedies to treat all these slowly, start treating in a dropper bottle form these emotional issues that everyone experiences. One of them is not mirror, which is a salt actually, and it treats loss, grief. We all experience that in our trauma line. So we give that person, every person that comes to us receives a dropper bottle, which has their constitutional remedy in it, their emotional support remedies in it, which is called NSOL, and has all the 4 main emotions to support them, from fear, grief, to anger, in that package. Their constitutional remedy helps them feel more balanced, but also it increases their immunity, their immune system, so it strengthens it. And then we also give them their first timeline remedy. So the way the timeline trauma line works is that we ask the patients to give us a list of all their traumas, from most current all the way to pre-birth, along with their predispositions, which is what they inherited from their parents. And we begin to treat it one trauma at a time, from the most recent. Sorry?
I was gonna say, sometimes it's not always as easy as that, because I know from my line of work, for instance, like my fear of the dark, I realized was church indoctrination. So when I was unpacking a lot of that, like now I'm friends with the dark, like, you know, and all those things. And but I know, like, somebody said to me like 10 years ago, Laura, you should just do specifically trauma work. And I said, I can't, and I'll tell you why. Because most of the people that come to me for this wound isn't healing, or I had one person that came to me, 2 knee replacements in the same knee in a year because the first one didn't take. They weren't connecting. They didn't know that it was trauma related. So they're not going to put on the form, oh, I think I had this trauma and that trauma, because they're just saying my knee isn't healing.
Yeah.
They're not saying that that was trauma. They just said, I don't know why my knee is not healing. And then when, in this case with the person with the knee, it was, we looked back at the history and it was, we started healing the root issues to how they lost how they lost a child to a stillbirth.
Yeah.
And war. They were a military vet. So and how it was connected to a child that had just had a miscarriage, and that was what
some people constitutionally, they might come with these fears, and that's why it's hard for them to understand. If you usually, some people know it, some people don't know it, obviously.
Right.
I can pinpoint, oh, this happened to me, since then I have this fear, right? So absolutely, your constitution, you might not come with a constitution that has a certain fear, but a certain trauma happened. Just like, for example, when I had my car accident, all of a sudden I was scared of driving, right? It can absolutely happen through a trauma, or you can be born with it too.
Yeah.
So
I was born with it. Yeah,
that was my constitution. So understanding my constitution was mind-blowing for me, because a lot of things that I did not understand about myself, I understood through Heilkunst homeopathy, through my constitution, which was incredible.
It's just I find that probably 80% of the people that come to me, with the trauma work I do, they're coming to me. They're not coming to me because they have a trauma. They're coming to me because they have, I got breast cancer. I've got ulcerative colitis. They've got all these other things.
Actually, there's a trauma that you need to treat. They'll never cure. Absolutely.
Exactly.
What we do in Heilkunst homeopathy. Like an onion, layer by layer by layer, we remove these traumas homeopathically with homeopathic medication, so that this person can literally set themselves free and become who they're meant to be. Because with all that baggage, you start to see the world from a different lens. You're not yourself anymore. You see it with a diseased lens. That's why people have all these attitude issues and this issues and anger. When you have all that anger, all that trauma in you, you are not yourself, basically. You're somebody else. You are a diseased person, and you see the world from that, and you act and show up to the world with that diseased state of mind. So what we try to do is dig out these, layer these out, so that this person can become who they're meant to be and show up that way into the world.
And well, I think the challenge is that sometimes, like I see, because I try not to get frustrated, and I go, all right, Kiyotaki wa karuna, but I would be like, because I see a lot of people with trauma that have normalized it. And that, I think,
that's
is
the problem. Yes, even pain is normalized. What do we say in Jikin and Reiki? Pain is your body talking to you, right? It's not something normal. It's your body asking for attention. Now it just becomes such a normal thing that, oh, I have a headache. Do I just pop a Tylenol or whatever, or Advil, and then I'll just suppress it? But that's not the cure. There is an issue there you need to take care of, right? There's bios in there, as we say in Jikin and Reiki, and it needs to be addressed. Maybe maybe you need to do some emotional Reiki there and stuff like that.
So what would you say are the top 3 things if people want to look at into either Jikin and Reiki or homeopathy? What would be the top 3 things, especially if we're talking people with fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis or any kind of like autoimmune similar, or any kind of the myalgias? What would you recommend are the top 3 things to get people that they can do today to get started on wellness?
Yeah, find a Heilkunst homeopath for sure. Get your blood type. Start adhering to a blood type guide. That's already going to making you feel better. Start paying attention to what you're eating. Try to adhere to a more holistic nutrition field diet. They'll help you in your journey. Any kind of inflammation, fibromyalgia, autoimmune stuff, stay away from sugar. So sugar, is really, if you can cut sugar from your diet altogether, I think it's a great thing. You can substitute it with stevia, which is what I do, and I love it, and I've been doing that for years. Find what your constitution is. Heilkunst homeopathic constitution is different than classical homeopathy. I want to stress that out. And understand more about yourself, what is good for you, what is bad for you, why you're the way you are. It's incredibly helpful. And know that there is alternative treatments out there. If you're diagnosed with something, where the allopathic medicine fails to understand or tells you that there's no cure for it. There's 100% cure for everything. Even cancer, doesn't matter at what stage it is in. And just like Laura explained, there's cure for everything. Seek help. You do have to change your life. You do have to do the work. But if you want to live, trust me, things that autoimmune diseases, this and that, they eventually just get worse and worse and worse, as in my case. And I lived a living hell for 8 years. I was in pain. I was exhausted. I felt like my inside was dying, literally. And it's no fun. So if you're in that state, if you're suffering, know that, have the hope and understanding that there is help out there. Seek it, know it, and go after your health, because there's nothing more important than health. Really, there's nothing. I lost it. I know what it means. It was not living. It was hell. So I sympathize with you. I love you all. Seriously. You are troopers. But please know that there's help out there and go after it. There's nothing more important than health. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I would like to just add, be willing to look outside the box. Like if you're stuck in
100%.
the I only can seek traditional medicine, and then you wonder why you're continuing, because that's typically like the client I get a lot of time is somebody who's gone. In Boston, we have some of the top hospitals in the world here, and they're getting sicker, they're not getting better. And so those are the clients that end up coming to me, and then we realize, well, it's because we got to understand one thing, and this is something I learned growing up in healthcare and osteopathic healthcare and holistic therapies my whole life, is that the healthcare system is not designed to cure you. The healthcare system is designed to treat a symptom and put a Band-Aid on the problem.
Exactly. Just like I said, palliate or suppress. But when you start to palliate and suppress, guess what happens? The disease goes deeper and deeper and deeper. You're literally suppressing it. You're pushing it inwards. A simple skin issue is not a simple skin issue. Is your body talking to you again? When you suppress it with suppressive medication, creams and whatnot, it goes deeper. And then guess what? Eventually, in a couple of years, it's going to pop up somewhere from inside you, that same disease that went deeper because you suppressed it with some, I don't know, skin cream. So yeah,
I would also add is, and I know for some of you who might be listening saying, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. This is too much. I have too much there and it's too scary. I would say this is where, if you are listening and you've made it this far, you're here for a reason listening to this podcast or 100%. Watching it, because there's something inside of you saying your courage needs to be stronger than your fear. Exactly. And this is where I would just say, in my thing, I go, stop, pause, breathe, and then say, okay, what action? Like, Meltem gave you like several different options. Yeah, homeopathy, Jikun and Reiki. There's yoga. There's all these different things.
And yoga is incredible. Start moving. That's another huge thing. And maybe a huge part of what we also recommend in Heilkunst homeopathy is movement. You have to move. You can't just sit and expect to be healthy. It's all, holistically as a whole, you as a person, you need to start changing your life. Honestly, a huge part of your healing is up to you. We can just give you, Laura, the work that she does or the work that I do. We can give you the tools, but you have to do that. And if you really, really want to feel better, knowing that what I'm telling you now, that there's cure for everything, start today. Start looking around. Do what Laura every month advises her, listeners, or, what we talked about today. Start doing it. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till next month. Start it today, one step at a time. You have the power to change your life. There is help out there. There's no doubt about that. I'm telling you that. So start today, and one step at a time, change your life.
Here's another quick tip before we start to wrap up is I usually tell my clients, everything that goes into your mouth is one of two things. It's either medicine or it's arsenic, like it's poison. And I correlate to arsenic because it's like,
every medication, pharmaceutical, has a side effect, because guess what it is? It's a drug. That's what it's called, a drug. A drug is not natural. It is put into your body and it will have a side effect. And eventually everything, I see people with a box of different pills, right? Because they take one thing and then they take another thing for the side effects for that thing. And then, you know, and then you end up with this whole box of different pills that you need to pop. I haven't taken a pill in literally years, like years. Even when I had fibromyalgia, I refused to take any pain medication, and I didn't, because I knew that was not going to help me and it was just going to make everything worse. So just to put it out there.
Yeah. And how could somebody, if they wanted to work with you, how would they be able to find you?
So this is my card. I don't know if they can see it from there, can they? I will read you. So Vibrant, www.vibrant-health.care is my website. My number is 778-994-1440. I'm in Canada. You can also call me, text me, or vibrant.healthcare@protonmail.com is my business email. This is my card. It's pretty.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I thank you for being here. And for those, please.
It was so fun chatting with you.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you like this episode, please share, please leave a comment. Let us know what you liked the most of this episode. And also consider becoming a Patreon member for $5 a month and help us with our social justice initiatives. The world is quite sick right now, and it takes a community to help make it well again.
Absolutely.
And every $5 goes to direct services and care and advocacy programs. So consider becoming a Patreon member. Until next time, we thank you for being on Triggers and Spiritual Medicine. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much.